Welcome back to the Mental Path Podcast. I'm Dr. Gretchen Guevara. This is part 2 of our conversation about burnout. I'm a psychiatrist and therapist who uses personal growth tools, psychology, and medical science to promote mental wellness. In this show, I'm excited to share some insights and skills that help me build resilience, and I believe they can help you think and feel much better too. And if you're feeling the weight of burnout right now, just remember, you absolutely have the power within you to improve your mental health in so many ways. In our last episode, if you remember, we talked about those sneaky, subtle early signs of burnout. Recognizing the signs is crucial because it empowers you to take control of your mental health. A few years ago, I convinced myself I was not burnt out and missed those very signs in myself, which is so easy to do. Last week's episode, we dove into the physiological and psychological changes that can happen and how burnout affects how you interact with the world around you and your responsibilities. It's just so important to catch these signs early because burnout increases the risk of depression and other serious health conditions. If you missed episode 7, definitely go back and give it a listen. Okay, so you're recognizing the signs we discussed, and maybe you feel that familiar exhaustion creeping in. What can you do if you're burnt out? Well, today I will share the steps that were game changers for me, the things that helped me finally face the signs in myself and take real action to move past burnout effectively. As a reminder, because it's so helpful to have a clear picture, burnout is defined as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. It shows up in a few key ways: feeling drained of energy, feeling detached from your job and just going through the motions, feeling cynical and negative about your job, and feeling like you're just not as effective or accomplishing what you used to. Let's jump into those strategies to actually manage burnout. I found 5 main areas that are incredibly powerful and absolutely necessary to address. We'll start with number 1, basic self-care habits. First is rest, which means taking daytime breaks and sleeping well at night. Stop going through your day without any breaks. I scheduled breaks into my calendar and protected my lunch hour from any work distractions. And definitely avoid those unnecessary working lunch meetings. Those can really drain you. For me, making rest non-negotiable was a significant turning point. Next, reclaim your sleep. We need sleep for physical and mental recovery from our daily stresses. I know you know this, so if you need to improve your sleep habits, start now. Then, there's meeting management. This might sound like it's not related to self-care, but it really is. I politely started declining unnecessary meetings, especially during lunch or after work, and definitely a firm no to early morning meetings that crashed into the time I needed to get my kids ready for school or even get myself ready for the day. Setting those boundaries was a way of respecting my time and energy. Finally, use your leave days. It may seem obvious, but it's easy to forget. Don't let those vacation days roll over year after year. They are meant to recharge you and help prevent burnout, so use them. To really tackle burnout, we must dig a bit deeper and discover what truly energizes us. We should also identify any aspects of our lives that might feel out of sync. This brings us perfectly to strategy number 2, reviewing values and goals. This is where we do some really important soul searching, schedule some intentional quiet time, even just 30 minutes to sit down and really reflect on your core values. What are those deep-seated beliefs and principles that truly guide your decisions? Understanding these core values will be like a life compass, helping you define your priorities. This kind of reflection is so powerful, you know. It serves as your anchor, giving you absolute confidence in your choices, especially when you're starting to set boundaries. Most people don't do this enough. Here are some key questions that really helped me during this process. I asked myself, regarding my job, is this good for my overall health and most importantly, my mental health? Is this action or decision truly beneficial for my family? Does this align with my long-term career aspirations and personal goals? And do my current work responsibilities align with my core values, such as kindness, fairness, and striving for excellence? These questions can be surprisingly enlightening when you take time to ask them honestly. Once you have a clearer picture of your values, it becomes much easier to understand where you might be overextending yourself or where your boundaries might need strengthening. That's exactly what we'll tackle next. Number 3, setting clear limits and reevaluating boundaries. This is all about taking back control of your time and energy. Establish clear, firm boundaries around them. This absolutely means learning to confidently say no to tasks and commitments that just don't align with your deeply held values and priorities that we just talked about. Remember, it's also about delegating tasks best suited for other people on your team or in your life. And saying no isn't a weakness, it's actually a great strength. It's about assertively communicating your needs and protecting your health with confidence and clarity. Here are some concrete examples of things I learned to confidently say no to. Maybe some of these will resonate with you. I would definitely say no to meetings while I was driving. It's just not safe and adds to the stress. A firm no to meetings scheduled after work hours unless absolutely urgent. Protecting personal and family time means no meetings or catching up on work during these precious hours. I even pace myself more socially, maintaining those important connections without constantly overwhelming myself. You might feel isolated when setting boundaries. Remember that you're not alone. This leads us to the next important element in managing burnout. Number 4, the power of support and connection. I found it incredibly helpful, I would even say essential, to have open, honest discussions with my core support system. For me, that was my husband, best friend, and a few trusted colleagues who I knew had my back. These conversations weren't just about venting or complaining, though sometimes that's needed too. They provided a secure environment for me to share my true feelings, identify the confusing emotions I experience, and begin thoughtfully planning my next steps. So we've talked about practical strategies and support systems, but there's one more critical piece, and that's what's happening in our own minds. That brings us to our final key area, number 5, psychology. Specifically focusing on the thoughts and emotions that inevitably come up when you're actively managing burnout. This whole experience is not just about external changes, it's also about our internal world. Pay close attention to your mental chatter, inner voice, and overall mindset. Feelings of guilt can come creeping in as you start to delegate and say no. It's totally normal. So, what really helps is to remember the powerful reasons why overcoming burnout is essential. Remind yourself over and over if you need to that advocating for your health, that means physical and mental health, is not selfish. It's a really good thing to do and benefits everyone around you in the long run. You might also find yourself worrying about what others think when you start changing your schedule or setting firmer boundaries. Remember, you simply cannot control what other people think. It's not your job. What is in your control is acting with integrity and deliberate planning. You can implement the necessary changes in a thoughtful and fair manner to everyone involved. Please know that this whole journey of managing burnout might take time. Be patient with yourself. Trust that the end is in sight as long as you consistently take the next small steps to improve your situation. Try to visualize the outcome you want. Imagine how good it will feel to move past this burnout phase. Imagine what it would be like to genuinely enjoy your career again, to have time, freedom, and energy to fully engage in all those important and enriching areas of your life that burnout has taken away from you. And finally, Absolutely mind your self-talk. Become aware of those sneaky thoughts that bring you down, those mental chatter that fuel self-doubt. When you catch yourself thinking things like, I'm weak, I'm a failure, or I'm just not good enough, pause, recognize that thought, actively challenge it, and then consciously reframe it into something more balanced and realistic. One really helpful way to neutralize negative thoughts is to reflect on your accomplishments over the past decade or even just the past year. You can also reflect on your most challenging experiences and consciously remember how you overcame them. You've done it before and you can do it again. Remembering your strengths and resilience is so important as you move through this. You may realize that to break free from burnout and rebuild your life, you'll need to make some big decisions, perhaps even major career transitions. Self-care can improve your clarity and confidence, and you'll be prepared to make these decisions. I've been there, and I know that you must be honest and brave to recognize the need for change and make it happen. So give yourself credit for taking charge of this process. I really hope that you find joy and fulfillment in your job. Remember that work is just one part of your rich, whole life. It's absolutely not your entire life. Whether you're actively managing burnout or aiming to avoid it, ask yourself, what do you need most right now to stay physically and emotionally healthy? If any of these strategies resonated with you today, I challenge you to choose something to focus on this week. Just one small step. Is there anything you need to address to nurture your physical health? Maybe getting more rest? What's the easiest thing that you can realistically improve in your daily environment? Like letting go of non-essential meetings or commitments. How are you really feeling underneath it all? And what do you genuinely need in this moment? What resources, like people, activities, or practices, can you actively engage to help you move forward and away from burnout? Okay, thank you so much for listening and investing in your own wellness today. If you know someone on the brink of burnout, please share this episode with them. It could be a lifeline for them. You can also go back and revisit episode 7 to remember those subtle early signs of burnout. They can be so sneaky and easy to miss. Tune in next week for episode 8, where we'll discuss anxiety, how it shows up in our lives, and simple, effective ways to manage it. Anxiety is one of the most common mental health conditions out there, and just like depression, it's treatable and manageable. Finally, excitingly, we have 2 more episodes to go before we wrap up season 1 of this podcast. After that, we'll take a short break and be back with season 2 in March. I truly appreciate you tuning in. Your time is precious, and thank you for sharing it with me. See you next week and take care.